Welcome to the Zeitgeist Lab Collections podcast, United States Canadian free podcast. I don't remember. Something about podcast content. There's an exchange.
I believe it's the US-Canada Free Exchange of Podcast Content.
There you go. Episode 5. I am but one of your humble hosts, Alex, and my other host here with me is Brian. Brian, how are you doing tonight?
I believe you asked me off mic how I was doing, and I told you I'm sufficiently stoned. So
nice. Mm-hmm.
That hasn't changed in the last 20 seconds.
Oh, you never know. I don't know what your routine to get, unstoned is, sobered up. I don't know. And also joining us is our creative consulting producer, Jordan Lane. Jordan, pleasure to have you with us tonight.
Pleasure to be here as always. How are you guys doing? Brian, how are you doing?
Brian, how are you? Has anything changed in the last 20 seconds?
Nope, still pretty stoned. Went to Titty Park for a little bit, and smoked a doob with my friend Max.
Now, does he wear the Juggalo makeup whenever you guys hang out?
No, I've never seen him in Juggalo makeup.
Okay, because you always just say Juggalo Max, so I just always assume he's like in full Juggalo attire whenever you guys get together.
No, he's not really as vocal a Juggalo as he used to be.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. Now he's like big into wrestling, and that's his big thing that he talks about all the time that I'm not interested in. So.
Oh, you're not a wrestling person?
I like the Attitude Era that I grew up on.
Okay, I could see it going either way with you. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if you were, but I also wouldn't be surprised if you're like, nah, I'm not just not into that.
Wait, what do you? It would be you wouldn't be surprised either way. What do you mean?
Like you don't give off a vibe that strikes me as one way or the other on wrestling. So whatever you said, I would accept and be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But
no, I remember you were a big fuck wrestling guy because you were like when I told you
wrestling.
When I told you I watched the Attitude Era, I told you just.
I don't know what that means. You've said that before. I still don't know what that means.
What does that even mean? That's so stupid. And I was like, I don't know what to tell you, buddy. It's just like that's just the era that I watched of wrestling.
Are you a wrestling fan, Jordan?
Doom, it is imperative that you fuck off. Come on.
No, I was not really a wrestling fan. Most of my friends. Most of my friends when I was a kid were into wrestling. Mm-hmm. I was not so much. Not because it was like fake or whatever, but just because like there was cartoons on at that time too, and I would rather just watch cartoons than wrestling or whatever. And then I was always just kind of ambivalent about it during like the sort of pre-Attitude, I guess, era, like the Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, whatever, those kind of days. But then after that was like there was just like I didn't like the Attitude Era and like the Degeneration X and all that stuff, and it was just like, oh, this is crass. Oh, this is vile. Are they indicating that they should suck their dicks? Oh my goodness.
Nice.
But no, I've come around to I'm not a fuck wrestling person. I don't care about it. I don't want to watch it. I have a lot of wrestling related stuff muted on Twitter just because I don't fucking want to read about it. And apparently everyone but me decided in their 30s that like, should I like start golfing or get back into wrestling that I haven't paid attention to since I was
like
like 13.
Those are the two choices, golfing or wrestling. Okay.
I guess there's becoming an MMA guy too.
So okay, you brought up something that I think is really interesting. I want to get your guys' opinions on or explanation on. You mentioned you have some wrestling stuff muted on Twitter, and because Brian and I have a shared account, I know that our shared Twitter account has certain accounts and things muted. I won't divulge here what on my personal account, PolySciAlex, I have never used the mute function ever. Is that what makes me think Twitter is so awful? Is that I'm just not muting anything, or what sort of mileage do you guys get out of muting things?
I mute anyone that I find the slightest bit annoying, or I just like don't like their reply, or I just like see them post something or something of theirs gets retweeted and I'm like, do I ever want to see anything from this fucking account ever again? Nope. Okay, mute it. Get it out of here. And then like if I can find ways to cut swaths of other kinds of things out of my timeline. Like I've muted so many kinds of like tweet prompts where it's like I muted the phrase using only pictures from your camera roll, and it just got rid of like so much fucking shit from my timeline. And so I use a lot of kind of like phrase snippet mutes like that. And then I have so many things muted. I have like Republican and every permutation of that word muted. I have Democrat and every permutation of that word muted. I have politics and every permutation of that word muted. I have abortion and every permutation of that word muted. I these are important things. Nothing is going to fucking happen on Twitter. Nothing is going to fucking happen on Twitter. I'm there for jokes, man.
So I think I get the muting of phrases and topics. I have not done that. I just kind of like let it all wash over
raw
me.
Dog
Exactly, basically. But like the first thing you said, like if I see a reply from someone like, "Do I ever want to see this again?" I just mute them. Like, well, why don't you just block them? Like, what?
Honestly, I can't give people the satisfaction of knowing that they're blocked. Then they get to go to my account and be like, "This person has you blocked," and be like, I guess fucking somebody can't handle the heat or whatever. Whereas like if you just mute them, like chances are you'll just never have to deal with this again. But even funnier but less likely scenario is that they continue to like reply to you or whatever, and they're just like literally yelling into the void because you will never see it. Like unless somebody like one of their friends screenshots it and posts it in the replies or whatever. And of course, like none of that happens to me. I have 350 followers. Like
right. Okay. So, all right. So, Brian, what is your philosophy then on muting? I know that you do block some people. So, what?
I've only blocked one person.
Okay, you only one. I don't know for sure. I know that there's one that we've talked about, but I don't know if we've blocked anyone else because I simply I don't care. So, what is your philosophy on blocking versus muting and the use of muting on like topics?
Yeah, much like Jordan said. Yeah, you can't give the person the satisfaction. You know. Doom, can you please go away? Why did you have to run up?
Can we mute Doom? Is that possible?
Yeah, can we mute Doom?
Send Doom over to me. I haven't had a kitty in my lap in a while.
No, she's never leaving here. No, she's hungry. Hold on.
Sure.
I can do both here.
Oh yeah, you're working on a phone. Nice.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, you can't like give them the satisfaction of like screenshotting the blocked message thing. We were blocked on our shared account by
Greg Proops.
Greg Proops, yeah.
What did you guys do to Greg Proops?
I did nothing. It wasn't me. Brian got blocked.
I don't know if you've ever been into his Twitter, Jordan, but he really likes the president.
Oh yeah, he's a fucking Hillary guy. He sucks. Yeah. Guy. Yeah.
Huge, just neoliberal guy. And he tweeted something about, Joe Biden doing such a great job. And I took a screenshot of an article that indicated, the contrary. I forget what the headline said, but it was pretty bad.
Right.
And pretty damning of our president.
The thing is, I don't really feel like it was that bad. Like, I think it was a clear offering argument to, like, are you sure Joe Biden's that great? Like, I didn't think it was like, oh, this is such a hot take. Like, I felt like it was a simple presentation of the facts. And if you still think Joe Biden's great, like, whatever. But, like, there was no argument. You just said, oh, really, are you sure? And then he blocked us.
Yeah, I sent them the screenshot of this article, and I was like, you sure about that, Mr. Poops?
Oh, right. You call him Mr.
Well, there
Poops.
you go. Yeah, okay.
Right, yeah. I forgot about that part.
Yeah.
That is really funny, though.
He doesn't like being called Greg Poops.
Strangest thing.
That's so weird. Yeah.
I blocked him as the Fentuzler, too, over similar things.
Nice.
I'm just, the way he tweets is just like, he's like a middle-aged wine mob, like he has their politics. It's like he's like, oh, I think Kamala is the Bamala. Like, I just have these like things that he's tweeted scarred into my brain, and I can't read them anymore. So I shouldn't have poked the bear, but
Nice.
It's not only the politics though, it's that smug fucking smarmy, too smart for everybody else prick fucking delivery that he's got too.
Yeah,
Like that's half of the problem. And like you can have that delivery if your material is funny or whatever, but like, you know, if you're just like a fucking Hillary guy and you're like acting like you're fucking so much smarter that for voting for the same person that like what was the actual population breakdown? Like 60% of voters voted for? Like,
yeah,
right. Yeah.
like I don't know if that's like if you're standing alone on this island by yourself, Greg Poops.
Nice.
Well, that feels good coming off the tongue.
Poop coming off the tongue always feels good. All right, well, before we get into what we're here for, I just want to remind our listeners to visit patreon.com/ZGLabPod, because we are in between seasons right now. So this is really the only thing you're getting in front of the paywall, and I'm sure everyone is missing our lovely voices. So head on over there. For as little as $1 a month, you can get something. But for $5 a month, you get access to our very lit vlog that is full of amazing content. I've only mentioned diarrhea on it once so far. So... So yeah, head on over to patreon.com/ZGLabPod. Give us your money. And with that, we will head to the northern border to get our Canadian content from Jordan. So I'm going to hand it over to you. And why don't you tell us what we're here to talk about this month?
Sure. So today we are here to talk about the Hip Club Groove's 1994 album Trailer Park Hip Hop, which came out on Murder Records here in Canada, which you may or may not know is Sloan's label. How much do you know about Sloan, guys?
Jerry Sloan was the famous basketball coach for the Utah Jazz. That's what I know about Sloan.
Nice.
No, what was their big hit?
Well, they had a bunch of them in Canada, but down there, I don't know actually what it would have been in the States. But they've had songs in the charts here since '92. And you know, every time they put it a record of charts. But anyway, I was just curious because like their Murder Records was a really kind of interesting thing. I'll just kind of lay the background for talking about Hip Club Groove by talking a little bit about Halifax first. Okay. So basically, when Sloan got signed by David Geffen in whatever that was, 92, and then put out their album Twice Removed, that was like a huge thing for Canada in terms of like putting us on the map of like, oh, there's like cool stuff going on in Canada. There is like an underground culture. People are kind of taking us seriously. And then for a while, the same thing that happens every, decade and a half or so to some Canadian city or other, where basically they're like, Halifax is going to be the next Seattle. And so basically it was like, we're looking for that Halifax sound. And a lot of labels poured a lot of money into a lot of bands from Halifax. Okay. Jail signed to Sub Pop along with the Hardship Post, another really great band from that area. Eric's Trip, of course, not from Halifax, but from Moncton, same kind of area. And yeah, like, people were, there was this, this sort of boom, maybe a manufactured one, I don't know, but they were selling records at the time. But Halifax was the place to be in the early 90s in Canada. Okay. And so one of the offshoots of Sloan signing to a major and having hits and getting some money to play around with from their label was getting to do Murder Records, which was basically them kind of taking the reins in terms of like A&R and discovering talent and who they wanted to sign and put out records by. Basically my understanding is that the funding came from elsewhere, but it was kind of their baby, so to speak. And so a lot of cool stuff came out that may not necessarily have otherwise. And I think that this record is a really interesting example of that because like, hip hop was not, it's not that it wasn't around in Canada. It certainly didn't have the penetration that it did in the States. And also, I feel like a lot of UK hip hop around the same time, it wasn't taken seriously, including by its own countrymen. Like Canadians didn't take Canadian hip hop seriously, with the exception of maybe like Maestro Fresh Wes and what's his name? Snow, I guess, eventually.
I was going to say Snow with Informer, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, like there was a couple people kind of here and there, but, there wasn't seen to be this kind of thriving culture because there really wasn't. There just wasn't the population to sustain it. And so Hip Club Groove were kind of a really interesting like anomaly in that space, because they are distinctly not urban. Like the image that they portray is all very kind of rural and growing up relatively poor and all this kind of stuff. It's not a glamorous thing, but it's still very much like it's still very much hip hop. Like it's a really, really cool record. It's like the people who made it went on to stay in making hip hop music for a long time afterwards. Some still currently do. And yeah, it's just kind of like a really interesting snapshot of what an influx of money can do into an extremely regionalized scene.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah. I guess from a not historical context point of view, it's a relatively short record. I want to say 8 tracks. And yeah, it kind of fits right into that like early 90s hip hop kind of mode. It's sampler beats, a lot of kind of breaks and stuff. Nothing like particularly innovative in terms of beat construction, but everything's very solid. Like this guy DJ Moves, he would later go on to produce and scratch for Len and a lot of other people kind of in the Canadian hip hop scene. And again, he's another guy that's still to this day active and still producing and putting out records and all that kind of stuff.
Wait, Steal My Sunshine, Len?
Steal My Sunshine, Len. They are kind of, yeah, like again, Canadian the Canadian hip hop scene is small enough at this time that like all of these people know each other. Like Len, I think we're from Ontario, so there's some geography separating them, but not that much.
Right.
But yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say I was gonna put in my 2 cents about this record then. It seemed like we're kind of going in that direction anyway. Yeah, I thought this was pretty good. My big takeaway from it was that this sounds like if you gave the Beastie Boys Ritalin. Like it's very focused, and like they're not like dragging out their instruments and doing those goofy instrumentals, or we get it, you guys used to be a punk band, you're not playing all these 83 different styles on one album. So it's like really like I like they use the sampling. I like the bass loops and stuff like that they had going on. But yeah, it just reminded me of like, yeah, what would happen if you gave like the Beastie Boys like Ritalin, in the sense that they kind of focused on like
right
one specific sound and kind of went along with it. But I mean, yeah, like you said, it wasn't as innovative or as groundbreaking as a lot of hip hop was during that time period. This is like what, 94 you said?
Yeah.
So yeah, so Paul's Boutique had already come out and stuff like that. But yeah, this, I mean, it wasn't entirely memorable. Like a lot of it didn't really stick out to me. I was kind of hoping it'd be funnier, given like the style of the hip hop that they're doing.
Sure.
It kind of felt like the rapping took like the back seat to the production, which I thought was kind of cool actually. But I guess like the rapping didn't really stick out to me as much as like the production styles did. But yeah, overall it was pretty cool. I'd definitely listen to it again since it was so short.
Right. Nice. Yeah. That's actually a note that I made too. It's really weird that they mixed the vocals so low. I'm not sure if that's just kind of like what they were listening to when they were mixing. It sounds different. There's like times when I'm working on music where like I'll be mixing something on speakers and it sounds fine, and then I'll put the headphones on and be like, oh my god, this hi-hat is mixed like way too loud, but you just don't know, right? So I don't know if it was just kind of like what they mixed on, or if they decided that they wanted to kind of, as you sort of implied there, Brian, like give the DJ and the production almost kind of equal weight as the MCs. But again, that kind that unfortunately results in just kind of a lack of clarity at times. Like you really got to pay attention to hear what's going on lyrics wise. It's not produced with that kind of stuff up front and center. And yeah, like it's not awful, but would I like it more if it was produced in a way where I could follow along with it better? Yeah, absolutely I would. Just like with that Bonaducci's record. Would I like it if it was mastered louder and like crisper? Absolutely I would. But that doesn't take away from it being good in its own right as it stands.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Yeah, it was still very enjoyable. It's just, yeah, like I said, the vocals kind of felt like an afterthought almost.
Right.
But yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, I don't, like stylistically, would you compare them to the Beastie Boys at all, or like?
Yeah, no, I definitely hear that. It was interesting what you were saying about like you don't like the instrumentals and like the punk songs and stuff. That was something that I. Oh, okay. Yeah, I was gonna say because that was something that I loved about their records, and maybe it was like
one of my favorite things about them. But
the slight age gap.
Yeah. No, it's actually like one of the reasons why like Beastie Boys are like one of my favorite bands is because they can do so many different styles and stuff like that over the years. But yeah, this is stylistically, yeah, it kind of reminded me of the Beastie Boys a little bit too, which I thought was really enjoyable. As like I said, they're one of my favorite bands, if not my favorite band.
Nice.
But yeah, I don't know. I just kind of wish there was more character to it. Like it's called like Trailer Park or Trailer Trash Rap or something like that, right?
Trailer Park Hip Hop. Yep.
Yeah, Trailer Park Hip Hop. I thought that would come through more in like the lyrical content. Maybe I wasn't paying attention too much. But yeah, I wasn't getting a lot of personality from the lyrics that I kind of expected to get from it. But yeah, overall, I still enjoyed it for what it was, for sure.
Nice. Alex?
Yeah, this was not for me.
Nice.
So, I've sat here, I've kind of listened to what you guys have said. I think I agree with a lot of the takes you have, but for me, that's what I think makes it awful. So when I was listening, I don't have a lot of critique or negative or positive things to say about the vocals. I was listening just like on my phone with no headphones because my headphones weren't up in my room. It was just something I was listening to when I woke up. So I thought, well, maybe that's why I can't hear the vocals very well. It sounds like maybe it was also just a mixing problem. But what I could hear really well was the music, and it was like, to me, it was just like standard fare for that era of rap, like kind of early to mid '90s. And I don't really like that kind of that kind of musicality. Like to me, it sounded like a lot like. LL Cool J was the first thing I thought of. But like, yeah, like Beastie Boys on Ritalin, I could see that too, and that would also explain why I might not like it. One of my famous hot takes is that I think the Beastie Boys are just like garbage. And I also don't like LL Cool J. So like a lot of the things I heard in the instrumentation was like at the time it might be like authentic. Now it's kind of just manufactured, but where you can kind of hear like almost like a tape hiss in the background, like. I don't care for that sound, and like Brian mentioned, like really liking some of the bass loops, and I thought those sounded very of a time, and it's like a sort of musicality in rap at that time that I did not care for. So I just think it's not that I think it was objectively bad, but like subjectively how I view rap and how I view what I've heard of this era, which is not a lot because it's not really my era of hip hop. It fits in with that, and it's just something that's not for me.
Right. Yeah, no, it's. Yeah, go ahead,
Alex. Like, what rap do you like rap at all? Like,
I like some rap. It's more like it's like on a song by song basis. There's not like a definitive artist. I'm like, oh, I need to listen to all of theirs or like a whatever. It's just like if I hear something, and like if a song is good, I like it to me. And so like I don't listen to enough to be able to break it down. Like, well, this is what I look for in a good rap, and this is what I think is bad. I'm like just a passive listener, and sometimes I hear a song like, oh yeah, that's really good, and I'll explore more, and that artist will be really good, or they'll be hit or miss. I'll be like, oh, that was their only good song. Or other times I'll be listening passively, and I'm like, oh, this is fucking shit. Like, to me, it's not something I study, like in the same way that I study like pop punk, like, like Drive-Thru Records or bands of that ilk, to where I'm just like, it's just, if I hear it and it's good, it's good. If I hear it and it sucks, I just never really think about it again.
Okay, because I was like 90% sure you were going to say you love Macklemore.
I do like Macklemore, most of his songs, but that's just it's not. I don't ever go out of my way to listen to him. It's just I've listened to his albums a few times. I enjoyed them. They're not like on continual playlists or on loop, but
okay, all right, all right, that makes sense.
Brian, what are you going for rap wise?
See, like when Alex was like, "Yeah, I don't like the Beastie Boys, I don't like LL Cool J." I'm like, "Man, you're like dissing my 7-year-old taste in music." Like when I was like, that's what I liked when I was 7 years old.
Sure.
It was like, the first CD I ever owned was I was 6 years old. It was "Gangsta's Paradise" by Coolio.
Nice.
I love the song from what was that movie?
Dangerous Minds.
Dangerous Minds. Yeah. And I saw the music video a bunch when I was like younger, growing up on TV, and I was like, I love this song. And my parents just went out and bought me like the parental advisory sticker and everything.
Right.
Oh, they bought you the sticker. Wow.
With the sticker on, what I'm saying. Okay. Yeah, of course. Yeah, that was a big hurdle for you to get over.
It was, yeah. I just thought, here's the sticker.
But yeah, so like they were like, well, he doesn't know what any of this is, so like they're like, it's fine, we could expose him to that, Yeah, that's what got me into rap. But yeah, I like everything, I like currently like a lot of like Makami and Griselda stuff, like West Side Gun. I can go on forever, but yeah.
Nice.
I like stupid shit too, like Playboy Cardi and everything like that. But I was tweeting about that the other day to an audience of 0, as usual. When it comes to me tweeting about music that isn't what we're totally focused on. But yeah, no, I go all kinds of different directions when it comes to rap. I've like listened to it longer than any other kind of music, and I had a huge like backpack rap phase in like high school, where I was listening to like a lot of like stuff on like rhyme sayers and that kind of stuff.
Sure, yeah. That was
yeah.
That was my college years, my whatever that was, 0001 around there. A lot of Anticon, a lot of rhyme sayers.
Yeah. I remember I saw Atmosphere on Halloween night in 2008, and that was like one of the best shows I had seen up until that point.
Nice.
But yeah, I was big into that because they're from the Midwest too, so yeah.
And again, like rap there are some rap artists that I like. Again, none one that I really get big into, and because of that, like I've never even been to a rap show. Like that's probably the only genre I've never seen musically, except also like live in concert, except maybe country. But I've had to suffer through some country somewhere inadvertently. Not like I showed up for it, but I don't know. I've been to the county fair, so like I'm sure I've seen country music live somewhere, but I've never. I think the closest I got was there's a venue in Salt Lake that has like 2 rooms. And we went and saw Andrew McMahon once, and in the room next, like in the same hall or whatever, was it was Tech Nine. Tech Nine was playing.
Nice.
And so like Andrew's playing like these really intimate songs, quiet. The audience is listening to him and like absorbing his words, and then you just hear Tech Nine, the other side of the venue. It's like, Jesus Christ! Like I can't have both things going at the same time. So that's the closest I've ever even been to being at a rap concert.
Well, that was the very first concert I went to was a rap concert up at Canada's Wonderland, which is a place up in Markham outside of Toronto, amusement park. And let's see here when this would have been later than that, 90 or 91. But it was MC Hammer with Boys to Men and TLC opening.
Nice.
It's
quite the bill.
It was a good show. Hell yeah.
Yeah. TLC. Hell yeah. I saw the Beastie Boys the day after Bush got reelected in 2004.
Nice.
And my dad took me and this kid that kind of pretended to be my friend for like a week so he can go to the show with me, I think, basically is what happened. Because after that, we just never hung out after that ever again. So I was like, oh, this person took advantage of me. That's great. But yeah, like my dad took us and and on the big projection screen before the Beastie Boys went on, they had like a big picture of like George W. Bush on like the big projection screen or whatever. And my dad's not like a vulgar guy or anything. He doesn't really swear a ton or anything like that. And then I looked over at him, and he's like, he just gave the finger to the projection screen. I was like, oh, wow, that's cool. And then at the end of the show, all the lights went out, and there's presumably like, set change for like the encore or whatever. And we were up in like not really the nosebleed section, but we were pretty like far away from the stage. We weren't down in like the pit or whatever. But we the lights went back on, and they were the Beastie Boys were standing in our section of the arena.
Nice.
Like in the in like the little walkway there, and like they did Intergalactic like 2 feet away from us.
Awesome.
Which is pretty sick. And then they went back on stage, and then their encore was Sabotage, which they played with like the live instruments and everything. They did a whole set of instrumentals too, which was really cool. But yeah, that was probably one of the best shows I've ever been to.
Nice. That's fucking wicked.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I guess the only other thing I'll kind of say about this one is that I think that maybe part of why maybe I'm more enthusiastic about it than you guys are is that kind of that problem of I guess contemporaneousness, because I heard this around when it came out. So at the time, like I said, it wasn't innovative at the time, but it certainly didn't sound dated at the time. And another thing that was interesting about it was you really didn't see at that time. I feel like maybe part of the reason that there wasn't that much presence for Canadians in hip hop, and especially kind of like independent or underground hip hop, is because there wasn't like their infrastructure for recording. Like, this was pre-computer days, like recording wise. It was still all doing hardware samplers and that kind of stuff. And just people didn't have that stuff, like you could go and find a bass or a drum kit at a pawn shop or whatever if you needed to, but like turntables or a mixer or a sampler or whatever is going to be a lot harder.
Right.
So I feel like maybe that was kind of part of it too, is that because Canadian cities are smaller, there's not a community that builds up around that can like share equipment and work on each other's tracks together and all that kind of stuff. And that's why I think it's interesting, the small in terms of the number of people involved, but the wide in terms of the geographical area covered, right, in terms of like kind of how tight knit this one little subculture was in Canada at the time.
Sure.
But yeah, so I just thought that's kind of interesting. Is of course it's going to sound dated to you guys. Like it's hip hop has literally had almost 30 years to change since this album came out.
Sure,
like it's not quite on the level of like my name is Jordan and I'm here to say, but it's like it's not super far away from that necessarily at this point either.
Right.
Which is really funny that you mentioned that and it's sounding dated and stuff like that, because when I was listening to it, I didn't really think about like when it was coming out. So I had no idea it came out in '94 until you said it on the podcast
right
earlier. So I was like kind of blown away by that. But yeah, it could have came out like any year for me.
No, I think it makes perfect sense that it came out in 1994.
Well, it does now. I mean, if it does now, but
yeah.
When I was listening to it, I was like, yeah, this sounds like a certain era, but like people like to channel that certain era.
Sure.
Contemporary music. So
yeah, there's I don't know if you've heard Babylon Dread before, Brian, but that album, he's got a couple albums. I think his one from 2017 or so though is like, it is basically like 1997 kind of slightly reggae infused New York rap, and it is so fucking good. And it's just like it sounds literally timeless. Like it sounds like it could have come from any point in the last 30 years. It's cool. But yeah, well, I don't have anything. Oh, you know what? We haven't even talked about the one kind of the angle that got me to bring this to you in the first place was that Corey Bowles, who is Corey on the Trailer Park Boys, is one of the rappers in this group.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah. So that was kind of the thing that brought it here in the first place, was that we did that Trailer Park Boys episode together. I think the first time I was on your show. And so it's we've got a couple of music videos where J-Rock and some other folks from around that scene kind of pop up. But yeah, it's kind of cool that he was sort of not necessarily part of the rap scene there at the time. Maybe he was, I'm not sure. But definitely part of just like being around the arts and stuff, again, just because the Maritimes are so small.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Hmm. But yeah, that's I don't have a whole lot of specifics to talk about on this one. So
All right. Well, no, I definitely think it was, like I said, it's not for me, but I think it's cool to like discover like these obscure things. To me, this is kind of what this idea was about, is to like find this thing. Like, I don't know, do you think how many people do you think will have heard of this? Is like, how obscure is this to you, Jordan? Like,
well, that's what's interesting about it is so Murder Records did definitely have a presence at the time.
Okay.
Like they moved units as a result of the Sloan thing. But yeah, there's actually on the Bandcamp page, Moves has a note there that says they sold 12,000 copies and he never saw a dime.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that means. I don't know whether that's because Murder Records did some sketchy accounting. I don't know if that means there was a sample clearance issue and they got all their money taken for that. I'm not sure. But I thought it's an interesting note. It's not without a little bit of salt.
Right.
So, like 12,000 numbers, or 12,000 units, pardon me, is like, that's numbers to me, at least, in like independent music. I mean, I've been,
for sure.
yeah, like I've done a band that did an edition of 1,000 and I was like, whoa, I can't believe we sold all of them.
Right.
And of course it took like 2 years. So
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, like I said, I think this was a great find. I think an interesting corner of the CanCon universe for sure. Brian, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
This is cool. Yeah. Like if this was just coming out and I had just heard it, I would be really stoked on it for sure. Be like, wow, what's going on near me? That's cool. But yeah. I was listening to Canadian black metal, like indigenous black metal, rather earlier. So I've been dipping my toes into some CanCon lately.
Nice.
But yeah, do you know the band Internock or something like that?
Nope.
You know the band Spectral Wound? They're
I've heard the name, but maybe just from seeing you tweet about them.
Canadian black metal. Yeah, I've been really into that band lately.
Nice.
So.
No, I haven't been seeking out metal and stuff in quarantine. I feel like I've got enough misery surrounding me. So,
yeah, no, I've got a pretty miserable hardcore punk and metal playlist going on that I'll drop when it's done.
Nice. All right, well, Jordan, thank you as always for joining us, and I look forward to seeing where you take us next month. And thank you to our listeners for checking it out. Take off, hosers.
Peace.
Take off, hosers.